Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sue DeCaro, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Erin Taylor. And today we are very excited about sharing this wonderful time with Bill Vergantino. Bill is a very successful businessman who has been involved in 5 business-facing software startup organizations where he held all different types of sales roles, including VP of Sales and CEO. He just launched his next software startup this month. Bill has been happily married for 23 years and has 2 active teenagers, a daughter and a son. He was a 4-sport athlete in high school and 4-year starting quarterback in college. Bill is very committed to all of the roles in his life, particularly his role as a dad. In January 2017, he released his first book called Kiss Your Kids, a book of 57 life lessons he wanted to share with his kids and others. Bill's personal objective is to enjoy and maximize life's opportunities to their fullest and do whatever he can to help others to accomplish the same. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you very much, Sue. It's great to be here with you.
Bill, you are just a hugely successful business person. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I was a business major, coming out of college or going through college, and thought I'd ultimately be in Wall Street, and thought stocks and bonds was going to be the future that I was going to be directed towards. But right out of school, had the opportunity to work for a company that did a great job in training me just generically about selling. And before I know it, that led me to my next opportunity, which was with an ex-teammate from mine from the University of Delaware who was in the software industry. And he was at a small startup company that had a new product. And it was a company that had probably about 25 people. And it was an exciting environment, an exciting situation where everyone that was there was extremely motivated. They were thoroughly interested in being a part of a team, going after making this company a success, had aspirations for success themselves as professionals. And we're really just trying to figure it out. How are we going to take this product to market? How are we going to be successful as a company? And how am I going to grow as an individual professional? And I really gravitated to that whole experience, that whole culture, that whole feeling. And that ended up being the first of what Sue alluded to is now 6 software startup companies. And, having been an ex-athlete, the startup mindset, mentality, a small group of people going after a common goal, it very much was synonymous with being a part of a team. And that's what I'm excited about.
Love it. That's fabulous. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And we know you're very committed to your team as your family. And so I'd love it if you'd tell us a little bit about your kids and your feeling of being a husband and a dad and what that means to you.
Yeah, I could remember going back to 6th grade, having a number of friends, obviously both men, girls and boys, but in particular, there was a girl that was a friend of mine. I remember being in 6th grade and hanging out with her, talking about how excited I was to ultimately become a dad and to have a family and to be married. And I knew back then that that's something I wanted to do and it was important to me. But yeah, now being a professional, as we all know, it's challenging to try to figure out a balance of life in a way that works for all. But for me, at the end of the day, everything else I do is kind of a means to an end in making, creating an environment and contributing to my family in a way that, helps them kind of go through life in a way that, they enjoy and that they're well prepared for. And that, so I love being a dad. Being a part of a family. I love doing my part, and I don't take lightly the role that I have to play to impact my kids and how they become young adults and ultimately adults and go out into the world and hopefully have a positive impact on other people and the world around them. So, I take that seriously. I take being a CEO and an owner of a business seriously, and in doing so, think of the fact that people that work with us and for us have families of their own, and they're trying to do that same thing with their own family, and that, we've got an obligation to kind of help them, with getting the resources they need to go through life and to help their families get along. So I take all this seriously, and I don't know where it came, probably my mom, but whoo! I get excited about it. I get excited about, how can I make a positive impact on so many people? And yeah, So
Well,
that's why I say
Awesome.
that is a perfect segue. You mentioned preparing your kids for their lives and living in the world. Perfect segue to your fabulous book called Kiss Your Kids. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how this book came to be?
absolutely. Ironically, in business, I don't assume anything. I kind of am very comfortable having conversations and asking questions and communicating in a way that maybe others find difficult. I think the most powerful and compelling and effective communications are those that are very truthful and really deal with the topic head on versus assuming anything. Yet the irony in my personal situation as a dad, I had 2 kids. I still have 2 kids, but at the time I'm going back, a number of years when my kids were 3.5 and 5.5 respectively. And, me and my wife had talked about, hey, we've got 2 young kids, Bill, you're going to work real hard and you're going to be doing a lot of traveling and we're going to lay the foundation for the family. And wow, we love being parents and having these 2 wonderful kids. And, I know I'm not going to be home a lot, but initially that's going to be a means to an end. And there'll be a point where I can't travel the way that I'm doing now. And we'll know when we get there and when that needs to be. And the reality was that apparently I had been assuming way too much in my household and with my kids. We were on a walk on a Sunday afternoon, and my daughter's next to me, who was 5.5, and my son was behind me with my wife. And I heard him murmur something to her, and I turned and I said, "What did you say, buddy?" And he goes, "Nothing." And I said, "No, I heard you say something. What did you say?" And he said, "I wish my daddy would come home." And I said, "Buddy, I'm right here. What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, you're going to Boston tomorrow, right?" Now, this is a 3.5-year-old boy. And, I'm blown away. I make eye contact with my wife and I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Well, later that week, the following Saturday, I'm sitting in the kitchen making him breakfast on the weekend, just him and I. And he goes, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure, buddy, anything." And he said, "How come daddies don't like to be home?" And I said, "Bud." And you can imagine the conversation that ensued about me having to explain to him that he and his sister and his mom were the most important things in my life, and that me not being there didn't mean I didn't want to be home. But nonetheless, this 3.5-year-old, I had assumed that I had more time, and I had assumed that all the other ways in which I was showing him how much I loved him and cared for him and how I thought I was being a great dad, I'd assumed way too much. And in his mind, he thought that daddies didn't want to be home and, very likely questioned what I, valued more. And within a month, I resigned from that company and, took another job where I was able to not travel so much. But that began my wheel spinning, Aaron. And when I say spinning, I was constantly thinking of the topics and the subjects that I wanted to be able to convey to my kids, things that I learned through life to be valuable, things that I felt were a fabric of how I go through life, or that I'd encourage them to consider, buying into and believing in, or at least thinking through, where they stood on the topic. So as I worked, and I'm right at the desk that I'm at right now talking to you, I would turn and I would write a list of topics and I go, okay, there's another subject that I want to talk to them about. Well, before you know it, there's a list that's 10, 20, 40, 50 topics long. And some of them just aren't relevant at the age that they were at the time. So I start thinking through, well, A, what happens if I'm not around when the time is right to talk to them? Or what if I talk to them today? And the reality is it's not relevant today. It's relevant 15, 20 years from now. So, before I knew it, I realized I needed to document these topics and I needed to write about them and share, how I felt about them so that they had something in their hands to walk away with, flip through, and refer to at any given time. And, hopefully it might help them navigate life or deal with a certain situation that arose. And I then realized that I had a bunch of folks that called me uncle, whether it be nieces and nephews or close friends and family. So, I got it in their hands. And, when their parents read it before I gave it to them, they turned and they said, some of them said, you got to be kidding me, Bill. Forget about the kids. I need this, and other kids and parents can use this. You need to consider, putting it out there for the public. So that got the wheels spinning of whether I wanted to release it. So I first got it to my kids, handed it to them with a cover letter, handed it to my nieces and nephews and close friends, and then started to work on getting it ready for publishing. So that's the long-winded story how it came to be. But at part of it, there's a 3.5-year-old son, child, and their wheels are always spinning, and it blew me away what he was thinking at the time.
I think that is a beautiful story, and I'm sure that all our listeners agree with me. What a beautiful way for a 3-year-old to bring attention to your role as a father, and then really help you to design this beautiful book that you've written and published. So I think it's just a fabulous story. And it leads me to my next question, which is, or our next question, which is, what is your favorite lesson within this book, or just your favorite lesson that maybe you've wanted to teach your children or you already have taught them?
Sue, that's a lot like asking me, which child do you love the most, right?
I would never ask that question, Bill.
And certainly I don't, the question is nowhere near as challenging as that would be if I had to answer it. But the point is similar in that, there's 57 life lessons, and, whether, I know you and your experiences could, have 57, you could have 100, and that's, where do you stop? And there's always so many things you want to teach the kids, but at the heart of it, what drove the thought process to become documented was me to say, okay, I've written business plans to start a business. I would never start a business without thinking about, what is my mission with this business? What is my objective? What am I trying to accomplish? I've started youth programs, where we've had 150 families and 300 kids participating in it. And, would have never thought to get it off the ground without putting a plan in place and then setting an objective for the organization. Yet as a parent, I hadn't done that, right? So with the book, I started writing these topics. So, the answer to your question, which life lesson out of the 57 is kind of the one I would pick. It's the objectives of life. Okay. I feel like I wanted my children to be aware of the fact that, in my opinion, they get a shot at living on this life one time, perhaps, right? And whether that lasts for 110 years, whether it lasts for a day in some human beings, situation, 10 years, 20 years, we never know, right? And we want to, I wanted them to take a step back and think of, what is the objective of life? And for me, and what I conveyed to them, in my opinion, it was two things. One is, maximize this incredible life that you've been so blessed to have an ability to participate in as much as you possibly can. So maximize it to its fullest. That's a life's objective number one. Life's objective number two is to do anything and everything you can to help others to enjoy life to its fullest. And the thought there is, forget about lessons, the other 56 lessons. If they buy into that first one, then any situation they face, whether it be, do I go down this path? Do I speak to this person? Do I pursue this opportunity? Do I take this job? Do I have this interaction that I'm planning? If they fall back on that first objective, is this helping me to maximize life to its fullest? And am I helping others to maximize life to its fullest? The answer to those two questions are really going to help lead a path for them that ultimately, I think, might lead to a life that's very fulfilling and rewarding and very exciting for them. So that's my favorite one.
I love it.
That's a fabulous one. I want to read a little excerpt from your book, which I have on my phone because I have the Kindle version. Before I read this excerpt, I want to say that this is a story that you shared in the book that occurred during the 8th grade awards night that your son went to, or that your family went to, and they were giving out awards. Each teacher got to choose the student of the year, or the teacher's choice award for that school year. And each teacher got up and read the description of the student they chose before they read the name, which I think is really, really neat. And one of the teachers chose your son as his teacher's choice award. Now, I'm going to share this story for a couple of reasons. Number one, I know your son, and he is just one of my favorite young people on the planet. He's just a wonderful young man, and you're doing a great job. You and your wife are doing a great job raising him. Number two, if I want our listeners to really listen to the qualities that this teacher describes in your son. And knowing that you have written this book about life lessons to share with him, or for any parent to share with a child, that every parent should read this book, because if reading your book helps a teacher to say this about a parent's child, it's so worth it. So here we go. This is what the teacher said. He is humble, compassionate, and a leader by example. He overcomes adversity like a champion and carries himself with class. The rare qualities of integrity and character, and has a beautiful spirit. He puts others first and does not seek recognition for his good deeds. He is well regarded and respected by both teachers and peers, and is a gentleman in every sense of the word. My Teacher's Choice Award goes to Bill Vergantino. Wow.
Wow is right. And Aaron, I heard it in real time. As you said, I wrote about it in the book and included it as a story. And it doesn't matter how many times I hear it. Anyone that's listening to this interview is somebody that I would imagine cares about children and kids and having a positive impact. And I'm doing everything I can to not tear up, to be honest with you. It's, you know, when Sue asked, how do you feel about parenting, my role and responsibility, to hear someone else in the world describe your child in that way. And I'm listening to this description. And as you said, you don't know yet until they get done, whether it's your child that they're describing. And I'm thinking to myself, if this is Will, I am going to be blown away to know that he is carrying himself in a way that others are seeing this in him. I believe this about him, but if he's going about his business in a way that others are seeing this, so wonderful. And I couldn't believe when I heard the teacher say Bill Vergantino, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. Like I am, going beyond to pat myself on the back. So, but I really want to share with you, like at that moment we started to tear up. I turned to my wife, we're emotional, and then we weren't prepared with what came next. The teacher then, as opposed to the next teacher coming up, he kind of held them off for a moment and told the audience, I need to add that had we had this award 2 years ago, Will's sister Gabriella would have been my recipient of that award. And I would like to acknowledge the Vergantino parents, because Aaron, you're shaking your head. That's us. I mean, we're sitting there going, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But the teacher's name was Eric Brown, and I mention it because when I saw him speak, independent of the fact that it was my son, I saw a man that could have chosen 1,000,001 careers. And like many of those that are listening to this interview, he chose to have a positive impact on children. And I saw how heartfelt this description of my son was. And whether it was my son or anyone else, it mattered to him to identify somebody that exhibited a behavior that he wanted to replicate, to touch others and acknowledge. And I subsequently, spoke to him about the book that I was writing. I had him write a reaction to write a reaction to the book. He agreed to, allow me to include it, which I thanked him for in the book. And I just have, a tremendous amount of respect for him and other phenomenal teachers. And, but yeah, what a night. Ironically, and this might make everybody chuckle, there was 31 teachers and therefore 31 families in the room. After the first 29 teachers had come up and they had introduced their awards to the children that had received them, I turned to my wife and I said, "Are you sure we're supposed to be at this?" We didn't have to wait for the next announcement. That was great.
That's beautiful. So, in speaking about your book, Bill, can you tell people where they might find your book? Where would they be able to get their copy? Because I think there's so much richness that is within. There's so many things that people can learn for themselves, as well as how they want to teach or raise their children, as well as your beautiful stories that you just shared one of. So where can people find this wonderful book and get a copy for themselves?
Thanks. So, there's a number of places, but the one hub to kind of all of the opportunities to purchase them is probably to go to facebook.com/kissyourkidsbook. So it's facebook.com/kissyourkidsbook. And then that'll give you kind of a page on the book itself. And you'll click through and be able to buy both a paperback version, any number of electronic versions. It is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a number of other places. But that'll be the one portal where you can choose which path you want to purchase it from. And, again, the book, this isn't my career, but I feel as if I've been blessed to have a phenomenal set of experiences from an athletic perspective, from a business career perspective, from having incredible coaches, both in athletics and in academics. And I feel like I was born the age of 60, always an old soul. But, and really as a result of all of that, I just feel like I've been so blessed to have so many people give me so many gems of wisdom and perspectives. And I feel like I've been able to package them and perhaps this book, if it touches one adult or one child in a positive way, then it's been worth kind of exposing my inner thoughts, which is always a risky endeavor, as you know. But
it's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And before we ask the final question, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge you and thank you for just striving for excellence in every facet of your life, for your dedication to your family and your commitment as a dad and a husband. What a great role model you are, and it's an honor to know you. So thank you.
Well, it goes right back at you, Aaron. And not only am I thrilled to be able to call you friend and know your fantastic family, but in talking to you from a professional perspective and meeting Sue and building connected communities. To know that, the people that may be watching this are distributed over 6 continents, and that what you and Sue are doing with BBC and those that are receiving your message, what they are doing, I'm proud to just be a part of it and be around people such as yourselves and those watching this as well, that I think all appreciate life and want to help others to do it, really. So, thank you for your kind comments, but, I think we're all just trying to do a little to help everybody enjoy this fantastic thing we call life and enjoy it with each other.
Yes, thank you.
You.
Okay, our final question. Given that we are building connected communities, we wanted to know what is the value of community in your personal and professional life?
There's so many potential answers to that, but the word team comes up in a lot of my answers, to be honest with you. Whether it be the sports that you pursue, the business endeavors you have, or activities you do as an individual, you could do them by yourself or you can do them with others. And I've always gravitated to being a part of something bigger than myself, to acknowledge kind of the strengths that I have, the things that I do well, and want to have them contribute to a team and enable the team as a whole to be effective at what they're trying to accomplish. And I think a community is trying to get along. They're trying to go about their business every day and to do the best they possibly can, and to have functioning roads and trash collection and sports events and activities and businesses, and everyone does their part, and everyone has strengths and everyone has challenges. And a community is a group of people coming together, and a real good one is one where they complement each other. And, everyone becomes just a little bit better because they've learned something from others in their community, or they've been able to contribute something, and their feeling of self-worth goes up, and they become a better person because of something they've consumed from others around them. So community was a big part in my wife and my decision as to where we were going to live. Before we had kids, we had the luxury of deciding which town do we want to move to. And we wanted to find a community where we felt we can contribute, where others around us would, enable us to be better people, and it would enable our kids to be better people, and that it would present to our children an opportunity to turn into the people that we'd hoped they'd have a chance to be. So community is team to me. That's the short answer, Aaron, and I probably could have said it quicker by just saying that at the beginning, but yeah,
Beautiful.
community is a team.
That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time today, Bill. It was fabulous, and we encourage everybody listening to run out and get a copy of your book.
Thank you so much. It was great being with you. Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.